Hi, this is Craig. On the last episode of Cruising Off Duty, you saw me sailing solo up to Penny's to meet Janice, where we were going to continue our trip up to Baskin's Beach for the party weekend. This is where Janice gets to kick back and relax after a long week at work. So that's what we'll talk about in this episode. We leave Penny's for Baskin's into a stiff head-on breeze. And when we get to Baskin's, we find there's nothing but whitecaps blasting into the bay. Even though the anchorage is very choppy, we make the best of it and have a great party anyway. There's plenty of food, there's plenty of drink, and there's plenty of music. The party goes late into the night, and we all have a great time. I wanted to drone over the beach festivities, but unfortunately it was too windy. But the next morning I got up and got some footage. Afterwards it got really windy again, so everybody took off out of the anchorage and started heading towards home. As we were sailing home, we saw this house catch fire. We sailed by as the thing burned to the ground. All that is coming up in this episode of Cruising Off Duty. So as you saw in the last episode, I was sailing to Baskin's, but I stopped at Penny's on the way to pick up Janice, and I was flying along at 7.6 knots. All right, we are anchored. We're at Penny's Point. Since I got there in record time, after I anchored, all I had to do was sit back and relax. Once you're relaxing, of course, you have to have a beverage, and from now on, this will always be considered red beer. Last bit of the day, getting some sun through the clouds. Janice is relaxing. Right, Janice?
Yep, relaxing. Trying to.
Relaxing. After a calm, relaxing night at anchor, all we had to do was wake up the next morning and do the rest of the trip to Baskin's Beach. Saturday morning, leaving Penny's Point, heading to Baskin's, just around the bend over there. Of course, we're going straight into the wind. I had my shower with the leftover heat from yesterday's little bit of motoring, and Janice is down below. She's going to end up showering once the engine's had a bit of time to run. The hot water tank hot for her. So she'll shower while we motor the rest of the way to Baskin's. One thing that is beautiful and I find myself looking at most of the time I go up the Ottawa River is the Gatineau Hills. They run the entire length of the Quebec shore. Although I've never been there, I can only imagine it's a smaller version of the fjords of Finland, or is it Norway, or is it Sweden? Well, whichever country has fjords, I think this is a little version of it. Although there's multi-million-dollar homes on the Ontario side, I've always liked little quaint places on the Quebec side, like this place. It really should be a postcard of what Canada should look like. Okay, we're just about at Baskin's Beach, just past that point. Ah, it's so peaceful, it's so quaint, it's so, oh my god, where do you have to go in such a hurry? You do realize we are landlocked. You're just gonna have to turn around and come back. Well, I hope you enjoy spending the $500 in gas. Okay, so this is Baskin's Beach. It is really windy and really wavy, so it's not gonna be protected in here as the wind's coming from the wrong direction. So this is Janice and me.
Hello. We
thought we would not be the second boat here because we saw boats going by when we were at Penny's, but as you can see, only one boat here so far. There'll be a lot more later, but surprisingly few already. That little patch of beach is Baskin's Beach. The only reason the club uses this one is because they are able to rent it from the campground that owns it, so we can party on the beach. All right, it's just a little afternoon on Saturday the 6th of August. This is supposed to be the big Baskin's Beach weekend for the Nepean Sailing Club to party on the beach. But this anchorage couldn't possibly be in a worse direction for this wind. I don't know how well you can hear me. If it wasn't for my dead cat over my shotgun mic, I'm sure I would be nothing but wind noise. But let me just show you. There's us, there's Celtic Cross, there's the hostess with the mostest, Carolyn and Colin. There's Baskin's Beach. There's a little boat called Headspace. And there's a light blue boat I do not know the name of. So hopefully a lot more people are coming. It's mostly a evening barbecue, whatever, so it's not like people are late yet, but it's a beautiful view here though of the Gatineau Hills. Let me just zoom in one more time, show you the hills a little more up close and personal. Alright, so there we go. So, of course the boat is bouncing, so it makes it a challenge. Goes on and on, all the way around the bend. Even though Janice has to stay behind the boat so she doesn't get slapped in the face with waves and holds the painter so she doesn't get blown away, she still wanted to swim. Good for her.
It's nice. I don't know what the temperatures are, but all I know is it's warm.
Warmish?
Warmish.
Excellent. And that's saying something considering we're in Canada. It was so hot that day that a lot of people braved the windy, bouncy conditions to go swimming. I'm focusing on the guy. Just the guy. Come on, eyes on point here. This is a PG-13 episode. The wind made not only swimming difficult, but anchoring as well. Will here brought his catamaran, but had trouble anchoring in the deeper water. Since Will was solo, it was hard for him to maneuver and anchor all by himself. So Doug, being the good guy that he is, dinghied over and helped him anchor in much shallower water. All right, it's 4 p.m., a little after 4 on August 6th. I'm gonna do one more pan. We have 23 boats here at the Baskin's Beach weekend. It's windy as hell, so I'm surprised we even got this many out because there's no protection here at Baskin's from this northwest wind. But the party is still on. That's the small little beach over there. The only reason we do it here and not at a better beach like Constance is because they pay the owner to party on his beach. So that's the reason. With it being about 5 p.m., it was time to stop having rum and cokes on our boat, pack up our cooler, pack up our dinghy, and start having rum and cokes on shore. I know it sounds like a true hardship, but we were able to persevere. By the time the party started, we had 31 boats anchored at Baskin's Beach. Once everyone was on shore, it was time to grab some grub, grab some drinks, and get the party started. Okay, that was the Baskin's Beach party. Don't worry, at no time was I shunned from the group or made to stand beside that tiki light. I did have one real job, and that was to video the party and also to drone over top of the party. There were a bunch of activities planned, such as beach volleyball and a relay race in kayaks. but with the high winds, all of that had to be scrapped. One of the things we planned to do with the drone was to have everybody come out on the beach and stand in a big group and wave up to the drone, and I was going to take a photograph. And hopefully we'd have a photograph like this every year to compare. I got up the next morning and the winds weren't too bad, so I decided to take my opportunity to drone while all the boats were still there. Without any further ado, let's put the obligatory drone footage to some music.
1, 2, 3, 4. If anybody wants to find me, I'll be in the last place you would look. In a place where people used to be, a land that's called reality, you'll find me there. I won't be catching up on Reddit. I won't be watching any news. I'll let the planet spin without me, 'cause everything has been without me sometime. And everyone will be alright if I'm not live by satellite. It's a beautiful day, I'm running away. Don't bother to Facebook message or call me, 'cause I'm living life in airplane mode and everything is okay. I just wanna play, unplug for the day and live in the moment, 'cause I'm living life in airplane mode, yeah. I'm always drowning in the static. I'd rather swim in crystal seas. My battery's been running low. I need to take it nice and slow for just a while. You won't be hearing about my weather, and you won't see my breakfast pics. For videos of kitty cats all gussied up in pretty hats, you'll have to wait. I hope it's not a tragedy. I hope you don't get mad at me. It's a beautiful day, I'm running away. Don't bother to Facebook message or call me, 'cause I'm living life in airplane mode and everything is okay. I just wanna play, unplug for the day and live in the moment, 'cause I'm living life in airplane mode, yeah.
So soon after breakfast, the wind started ripping again, and even though I didn't want to do it, Janice wanted to go swimming once again. Good for her. By this point, we were so sick of the wind, we just wanted to get out of the anchorage and start heading towards home. I think everyone felt that way because by the time we left, there were already a lot of boats gone. So as you can see, there's a flotilla of boats all heading south towards Ottawa. I'd heard by text the night before that a 10-year-old boy had drowned in Constance Bay just upriver from where we were partying. It was a sad story. Then to compound it, when we're sailing back, I noticed this house catching on fire. Now, I've been to enough calls to know that the black smoke is not a brush fire. It's a house fire. I called Janice upstairs as she was down below, and I showed her the fire. I told her when there's that much black smoke, that house is pretty much toast. By the time the fire department gets there, water isn't going to help. It was the middle of the day when the fire happened, and I'm sure nobody died in this fire, but it's still very sad for the family as they're losing all of their possessions. I usually play some upbeat music over my videos, but needless to say, with this going on, I don't think an upbeat music is really appropriate. As you can see, we're actually not that close to this fire. I was just using the zoom lens on my camera to zoom in. But as time goes by, we sail closer and closer. Even though we're still a long way away, I used my 280mm lens to zoom right in on the house, and I can see the flames erupting out of the roof. I still don't see any fire trucks in front at this point. Being that it's a rural setting on the Gatineau side, I assume the volunteer firefighters are in charge of this area. Even a full-time fire department probably wouldn't have been able to save this house. We're so busy looking through my camera lens and her using the binoculars that we almost sailed right past Penny's Point. We turn in and look for an anchorage spot, but it's just so full of boats, we decide to just sail on towards Ottawa. In the meantime, this fire is still raging, and we finally see some fire trucks and some water being sprayed on it. But it's such a big fire at this point, I'm more concerned with the houses nearby catching fire. There's no way they're going to save this house. This is the vantage point as we leave Pinnies. As you can see, as we're leaving Pinnies, which is on the Ontario side, this fire is on the Quebec side. I'll zoom in on this house and let you see it while I tell you what the story is with the boy that drowned. Subsequent to our party weekend, before I've had time to edit this, I've had time to read the story. The boy and his 20-year-old brother were here visiting from Toronto. Constance Bay has a sandbar that goes quite far out, but then drops off suddenly. The 10-year-old boy walked off the edge and fell into deeper water, and with the high winds pushing downriver and the current, he was washed away from the sandbar. His 20-year-old brother tried to swim out and save him, but he almost drowned as well and had to be rescued. It's a very sad story, and my condolences to the family. I heard about it during the party, and I knew the police divers were looking for the body. Most of the people at the party had no idea this had happened just upriver. But there was really no point for me to tell people and bring down the mood. Now, I've been a police officer for over 23 years, and I was a fatal collision investigator for over 8. So I've seen a lot of death and tragedy in my life. What this has taught me is not to be sad, but to take every day as if it's precious. This is probably the key reason that I'm going to retire at my very earliest opportunity without a penalty. Janice and I are going to sell everything, buy a catamaran, and sail around the world. Well, turning to a brighter note, we had a good sail the rest of the way home. The winds were strong, but they were behind us. And so as you can see, our dinghy was flying along, and our sails were always full. So I guess you can say this is the weather that every sailor wants. Fair winds and following seas. Well, that's the end of this episode of Cruising Off Duty. I hope you found it informative in certain areas and entertaining in others. If you enjoyed it, please click like. It helps me out a lot. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Considering I only started my channel on June 25th with the first episode, I'm blown away by how many views I have and how many subscribers I already have. And I have you to thank for it. Thanks a lot.